sheriff. Sheriff Clarke is a frequent guest commentator for national news services and organizations regarding law enforcement, the Second Amendment, homeland security issues, and has been interviewed by numerous media outlets, including CBS Evening News, CNN, Fox News, Lou Dobbs, and Charlie Payne, and the National Rifle Association, among many, many more. The sheriff hosts The People's Sheriff, a weekly 1-hour podcast on the Blaze Radio Network. If you don't listen to this, I encourage you to do it. You can download it through iTunes, through Blaze, through SoundCloud. It is a great podcast. He's here today to talk to you about the state of policing in America. So if we can have a warm welcome for Sheriff Clarke.
Wow, good afternoon. Good to see all of you, it really is. You know, I'm on this incredible tour. It's actually a mission, but it's somewhat of a tour when you're a cop and you're called tour of duty. I've been all over this great country, and I've seen a lot of great Americans like yourselves, like you believe in this country. It is the greatest country on the face of the earth. I don't know why anybody would want to change it. But when I come to a place like Houston area, I should say, Harris County, some of the other surrounding counties, and when I say it's a pleasure to be here, I'm sincere about that because I get more invitations now to come out and speak to groups than I can actually get to, and now I get to be a little selective about where I go and who I get to meet. So I have to tell a lot of people no. So I had to tell some groups and some people no this week because I decided to come to the state of Texas to be with all of you and to share some of my thoughts with you. And so that means something. Should mean something anyway. A couple of ground rules I'd like to start out with. Somebody invited me, okay? And that tells me somebody wants to hear my thoughts, my positions, my opinions, whatever, on a number of things going on in our world today. But here's how I approach life. I don't know everything, I don't need to know everything. I have some points of view, I have some opinions, I have some positions about things that are going on in our world. I'm just from one school of thought. On all of these issues, there are two schools of thought. I'm just from one school of thought. I realize there's another school of thought. That doesn't bother me. I don't try to shut that other school of thought down. What I expect to happen in this human discourse and in this political discourse that has gone on since the beginning of man, if you will, is we have this discussion, we have this dialogue. Maybe we come to some consensus, maybe not. See, the goal is not, with me, is not consensus. It's whose argument is stronger. And so when I come out and I talk to people or I engage in some one-on-one conversation, which I get to do on TV a little bit. By the way, my name is Sheriff David Clarke, not that guy on Fox. I hear that a lot. And so to the point now where I'm at home and my wife will be calling me from another room and I'm just not paying attention. She comes in and she goes, "Did you hear me calling you?" I said, "No." She said, "I was yelling, David, David." I said, "It's not my name, I'm the guy from Fox." But anyway, you know, I get to express those views on a different platform now. And what I think matters. Why? because these platforms have allowed me to come and express those views. So I'm part of this national discourse now. But I don't think I'm right. I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the room. But I will express my position and I'll back it up. See, anybody can have an opinion. Anybody. But if you say something that you want to put forth as, hey, here's an important part of this discussion, and it isn't just a talking point, you better back it up with something. In other words, who else thinks like that, Sheriff Clarke? Who else believes that sort of thing? What have you read? What have you researched in this collective body of knowledge to come to that position? Because none of what I say is reinventing the wheel. I've built on this collective knowledge of a lot of people from a lot of different generations. I have my favorites, who I read about, who I learn about. But anyway, if you're just going to come against my thought-out point with an opinion, it's not going to be real pretty. Don Lemon found out. Okay? So just support it. And if you lose an argument, because I don't win all the arguments, I don't get mad at the person who kind of got the better of that back and forth. I say to myself, David, go back and strengthen your argument. I don't try to shut people down. But what happens now is it denigrates into, oftentimes when you're winning an argument or discussion, it denigrates into name calling and all that, and it just shouldn't. But that's the world we live in. It's unfortunate. But I have to set that up coming in here because I may say some things that you may not agree with. I think I'm in a pretty good crowd here. How I approach life, but I don't take anything for granted. I still may say something that may tweak you or whatever. You know what I say? Don't worry. You asked me to come down and talk to you. I didn't invite myself. So I'm willing to share some of those things. But I think it's important to at least have that understanding, because I have had some people come to me after a discussion and as I'm leaving or whatever, making my way out the room, Sheriff, I want to talk to you about something you said. I didn't agree, I didn't like it, whatever. Fine. Who cares? It's not the end of the world. It's just not. We're not going to solve it then anymore. I woke up this morning and I read a disturbing account of 2 police officers from Palm Springs that were killed in the line of duty a day or 2 ago. Something that many of you have been dealing with for a long time. If you've been in this career and you're in it long enough, you don't even have to be in a long period of time. It's just something you have to deal with psychologically, emotionally, and sometimes you have to deal with it directly if it happens within your agency, and not just within your agency, because we're a fraternity. And I always say, anytime a law enforcement officer is killed in the line of duty, a little of each and every law enforcement officer dies with them, and that is true. So when I read these accounts, and I think of the agency, I think of the surviving family members, and I get a chance to talk to a lot of survivors, law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty. I work with this organization called Cops Concerns of Police Survivors. As a matter of fact, I think next month I'll be speaking at a Cops annual event in Arizona. I spoke at the National last year in May. And, when you talk to a widow, mostly it's widows, you talk to siblings, you talk to parents, who come up to me and Sheriff, my son, my daughter was killed in the line of duty. Sheriff, my husband was killed in the line of duty. Sheriff, my brother, Sheriff, my cousin was killed in the line of duty. It hits home. And the reason it hits home is because when I look at these folks, there was a man in Tucson, Arizona about a month ago that was down in the bar having a drink, sitting by myself like I do, and he came up and introduced himself and he said, Sheriff, I want to thank you for defending law enforcement officers. He said, my son was killed in the line of duty in 2006 in Orange County, Florida. When I looked at him, like I do every time I hear somebody come up and tell me that, I say to myself, there, but for the grace of God, go on. There, but for the grace of God, goes my dad. There, but for the grace of God, goes my wife. Who could have very easily been the one that is telling somebody else, my husband, my son was killed in the line of duty. You know, I've made it 38 years. Haven't had that happen, but until I take this uniform off for the last time, it could still happen. I still go out on the street, still like doing police work. It could still happen. I've heard of chiefs and sheriffs being killed in the line of duty. And so it really hits home. So when I'm reading this account this morning, these two officers from Palm Springs, deviating a little bit from what I came to talk about. We'll get to that. I may go over time a little bit, but you know, I came a long way and at great expense. So I think if I take a little more time than I was granted, well, forgive me. Okay. What this article says, the officers killed were identified as Officer Jose Gil Vega, 35-year veteran. I have 38. Who was due to retire in December. I get chills when I read this stuff. It goes on to say, Vega was working overtime on the day that he was killed. He goes home at the end of his tour on time, or doesn't volunteer for the overtime, he's alive. Think of this. I mean, you folks get it, I'm preaching to the choir. But think about this. This is how it impacts on me. It says, guy's a husband. His wife's at the hospital. To see her laying there with her eyes open and to witness her husband in full sheriff's uniform kiss her on the forehead for the last time, it's tough. Reyes, the third officer who was wounded, is doing well and assisting investigators. Listen to this suspect's history. This is the crap that burns me. In this push toward criminal justice reform, in this push by criminal cobblers and advocates for criminal to marginalize and mainstream criminal behavior. Listen to this criminal history. This guy's last name was Felix. He was convicted of assault with a deadly weapon after an initial charge of attempted murder in 2009. Prosecutors at the time accused him of being a member of a criminal gang. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison. In 2013, he was accused of resisting arrest with Palm Springs police on the same street where Saturday's shooting occurred. You know what he pled to back then? He pled guilty to a count of malicious noise. A guy with a violent history. Why do we do this? Yet the President of the United States and others, we have to have sentencing reform. No, we don't. We need to keep these bastards locked up for as long as the law allows us. Gil was an outstanding police officer. This is his wife said, wiping away tears. Highest level of integrity. Cared deeply for all the citizens of the city of Palm Springs. And beyond, just gave his heart to the job and to the community. I can't think of a better cop. Vega was described as a kind of police officer who always thought of others before himself. A couple heard about the deaths through social media and were in disbelief, especially after finding out who was involved. I have to read this, not to you, I have to read this to myself. Because I'm on a mission right now. To defend the courage, the honor, the sacrifice, the commitment, the integrity of the American police officer. These are the cops that I know. There are more Vegas in this profession than not, and it's not even close. And so what I see what has gone on with this profession has been good to me for 38 years. And when I see powerful people, I expect it from the cop leaders, folks. I do not expect it from the President of the United States of America. I do not expect it from the Attorney General of the United States Department of Justice. I do not expect it from mayors like de Blasio, and there are a lot of others that I don't have time to name. I don't expect it from them. These are the cops that they know too. The problem is, they've chosen to extract some short political gain at the expense of your community's finest, and it's sickening. Now, like the chiefs and sheriffs here today, we send people out in harm's way like Chief Palm Springs. We don't know if they're coming back. More times than not they do, it's no guarantee. This is a day I dread. I've had to bury an officer. This is Sheriff of Milwaukee County, 1 in 14 years. This is a day I dread. And so when I sat up there after the days of Ferguson, Missouri, tiny Ferguson, Missouri, who I bet before that fateful night when Darren Wilson had to use deadly force to defend his life against citizen Mike Brown, I bet if you showed people the outline of the state of Missouri on a piece of paper with no cities marked and said, point to Ferguson, I'm telling you right now, unless you've been there before or have a relative there or a friend, you wouldn't even know where Ferguson, Missouri was. I did. And you know what? I bet it's St. Louis. I never heard of Ferguson, Missouri. So Ferguson, Missouri hits. And let's face it, the United States of America did not witness its finest hour. As people on a political bent converged on the tiny city of Ferguson, Missouri to extract something politically in a move of self-interest for themselves and turn this into a political construct for future political considerations. The town burned down, or at least a good part of it, not the entire town. And then these people left. For the good people of Ferguson, Missouri to have to sift through the road to put their lives back together. And these vultures were nowhere to be found, they all left. Took this ugly traveling roadshow to the next city. To New York with Derek Garner, to Baltimore, to Milwaukee, and other cities all across America. Four months later, in New York City, one of the boroughs, two of New York's finest, just sitting in a cruiser park, assassinated by a guy from the Baltimore area who went to New York, who claimed to be avenging for the life of Mike Brown. What do these NYPD officers have to do with that? Nothing. Officers Raphael Ramos and Wenjun Liu. I went to the memorial service for Wenjun Liu. Met his parents. Matter of fact, saw them again recently in New York. I was giving them an award and they showed up. But I said in December when that happened, and I said it loud and clear on TV, war had been declared on the American police officer. I said it in December of 2014. And the mainstream, the liberal mainstream media thought that was over the top. Well, look where we are today. So I sat up there and watched some very powerful people trash this proud profession. I just reached a point, to be honest with you, I was waiting for somebody else to say something about it, push back. No one did. So I decided to. I didn't want to, because I know the perils that go along with sticking your neck out like that on these very volatile issues of race. But I was not about to let the lives of these law enforcement officers, not only at that time, not just for Darren Wilson, not just for Wenjin Liu and Rafael Ramos, not for this officer I just told you about, but for the names 20,000 law enforcement officers who are etched into the wall, memorial wall at Judiciary Square in Washington, D.C. I did it for them. And I did it for their survivors. I knew there was political peril, I didn't care. I said to myself, David, this isn't about you and what may happen to you. This is about them. So I went on this mission to defend your community's finest, and I've been on the mission ever since. I want to thank Crimestoppers for being a support service for law enforcement. Not only for what you do to assist your community's finest in getting some of these desperados off the streets to make them safer. Any cop can tell you when someone doesn't want to be found. Very difficult to find a remote society. And we could spend countless man hours, human resources, trying to find one person. We don't have those kind of resources. So the fact that Crimestoppers steps up and assists us, maybe you don't hear this a lot, but it means a lot. It does to me anyway. I don't even live in Texas. And I think of some of the other support services that you provide with your training, your programming, it's good stuff, folks. You probably never hear it enough, but don't worry about that. All right, as a cop, we don't hear it enough either about the value of our work. We don't want anybody to feel sorry for us. I don't want a pat on the back. I volunteered for this. I ran for this office. All the thanks I needed was when people came out and cast a ballot to allow me to serve them in this capacity in my community. That's thanks enough. I said, I'll take it from you. Thank you very much for your vote, your support. I'll take it from you. But I don't like what the political class is doing, and not just in terms of what's gone on since Ferguson, Missouri. Resources have been cut. I'm 150 deputies short from where I was in 2004. These cops go out there, they're under-resourced. The least we can do is have their back when things go tragically wrong. And we operate in a world where cops do, where things can go to hell in a hurry. Through no fault of our own. Sometimes through a fault of our own, but that's rare. Thank God it's rare. So when President Obama, I've called him straight up cop hater on TV. And I expect to be challenged on that. As a sheriff, give us some examples. And I say, why did he cut the 1033 program that allows law enforcement agencies to take military surplus equipment to make sure that our officers are properly resourced on the street to do this difficult job? By the way, there's another long time serving officer in California, sheriff's deputy, LA County Sheriff's deputy, was killed about 4 days ago, responding to a burglary in progress. I'm like a 29, 30-year veteran, but I mention that because we have to have the resources. You can't send people out into harm's way if you're not going to equip them to do this difficult job. That is immoral, ladies and gentlemen. I don't care how it looks. this militarization of the police, and I don't care how it looks. I want my people to have a fighting chance when they run into creeps like this. Okay, Sheriff, that's one example. Give us another example of why you say President Obama's a straight-up cop hater. Oh, I got some more. President Obama stood up there one day and said our law enforcement officers have a problem with people who don't look like them. I said, oh, really? You hear what this guy's wife said about him? Like I said, these are the cops that I know. And I said, what the hell are you talking about, Mr. President? It's all due respect. What the hell are you talking about? You're going to take the 0.1 or 2% of people who are not a good fit in this organization, for this profession, who go outside the policies and the code of conduct we have, and you're going to indict this entire freaking profession? Are you serious? Okay, Sheriff, that's two. You got another one? Because now they're trying to trap me. Okay, I'll give you another one. Anybody know the name Dabo Adegbile? Dabo Adegbile, an attorney. A black attorney, it doesn't matter, but that's support for this story. Who hates cops. He's written about it. Dabo Adegbile went on a crusade to try to make Abu Jamal, a notorious cop killer of a Philadelphia police officer back in the 80s. I mean, you read the accounts of the murder, it'll make you sick. And what he said afterwards. Dabo Adegbile was convicted and sentenced to death. And then because of some little quirk in the jury instructions, not the trial, the jury instructions on the death penalty, it was overturned, I should say. The jury said death to this cop killer. Human waste is what he is. And so in a plea, because now it's years later, witnesses are gone, you don't want to do this over again and have this guy be acquitted. The state said, we'll make you a deal. Life in prison without parole, will vacate the death sentence. And they took it. Yeah, we'll take that. Dabo Adegbile did not represent Abu Jamal. He was writing briefs on behalf of support for him in the court system. He wasn't representing Abu Jamal. Even after the sentence, he was resentenced to life imprisonment. Dabo Adegbile went on his crusade to make Abu Jamal a cult hero. Now, Dabo Adegbile can do that if he wants. United States of America. President Obama nominated him to be a federal judge. Fortunately, the Senate Judiciary Committee knew this guy's history, and law enforcement mounted an attack to not confirm this guy, and the president had to withdraw his nomination. This gets better or worse. President Obama comes back with the name of Dabo Adegbile to head the Civil Rights Division of the United States Department of Justice. Same guy. Every law enforcement organization in America wrote letters to the White House and to the Attorney General, Eric Holder, and said, please do not do this. This guy is not a good fit to lead a civil rights division in the United States Department of Justice. He's a cop, and he's a racist cop. I was at the meeting in Washington, D.C., major county sheriffs, major city chiefs, where Eric Holder came to speak to a person who told him, please tell the president to withdraw that nomination. And Eric Holder knew about this guy. And Eric Holder stood up there, well, you know, I understand it, well, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I thought this bastard wasn't gonna do anything. Fortunately, some US Senators, Jeff Toomey, I can't remember the other one, went on the attack with some op-eds. You gotta get public support for this when you're gonna make these votes. And he wrote a beautiful op-ed about how David Degley was not a good fit. He's a racist. He's not a good fit to head the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. Obama did not only did Obama submit the name, he wouldn't pull it back like he did with the federal judgeship. I mean, it was soundly defeated by the United States Senate. It wasn't even close. That's 3. How many more do I need? That's enough. I only need 1 really, but I'll give you 2. I give you 3. And that's why when I make a claim, you don't have to agree with it, but I don't do it to provoke. And when I said Obama is a straight up cop hater, I meant it. His actions demonstrate that. That's the kind of person I am. I don't just shout out stuff to incite, provoke, hyperbole. So, I'm on this mission, and I'm gonna stay on this mission. And this band I have around my badge, which every cop in here knows what that is. Put this on back when we're a fraternity, a law enforcement officer killed in line of duty. Normally it's just cops in that area, the state might put the black band on. But now some of these notorious ones, all the cops across America put it on. And I put this on, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 months ago, and usually take it off after 24, 48 hours after the person's been buried. But the cop killings happen so frequently now, you have to keep putting it back on. And I made a statement on TV when I was asked about it. I said, this ain't coming off until the war on cops is over now. So, we have that, and then, we have this other backdrop. Something I read on the way out here. Where the Attorney General, the state of New Jersey, state Attorney General, came out and ordered that all the Jersey state officers are mandated for racial bias training and retraining on the use of force. That's the backdrop. And this is why I believe, like I said, that war has been declared on the American police officer. I'm tired of this crap about your community's finest. And one of the other things I was told, in addition to the time limit, they said, we're a 501(c) whatever, and kind of stay away from politics and and I thought, well, I'm going to have to just stand up here mute for 30 minutes. I mean, think about everything I say is political, and it doesn't, not even intentional. Right, but I'm in a political environment now. And so when I read this story about how the New York Attorney General has ordered, amid nearly daily protests in cities across the United States over police use of force, New Jersey's Attorney General on Wednesday directed officers from more than 500 agencies in the state to undergo training in racial bias and de-escalation. That's another term. First of all, if I were the sheriff in the state of New Jersey, and the Attorney General came down with this order, I'd tell him to take this order and stick it. We're not doing it. And my people aren't doing it. We don't need racial bias training. We don't need any training on de-escalation. We already have a use of force continuum that we've been training on last several decades this thing came up. This use of force continuum. De-escalate. Did the creep who shot the 2 Palm Springs officers, did he de-escalate? Did the creep who shot the 2 New York police officers back in December 2014, did he de-escalate? Did the creep who shot Kerry Roscoe, Omaha, Nebraska, new mom, she delivers her first baby, was born premature, she goes home from the hospital, goes back to work immediately. She was going to start maternity leave when her baby came home. So she was going to forego her maternity leave. Shot and killed in line of duty, her baby hadn't come home yet. Did that creep de-escalate? So now this baby grows up, will never know its mother. Kerry Roscoe never got to hold her first child in her arms at home. And these creeps are going to come to me with this kind of bullshit? Pardon my language. It incenses me. I see this and I hear this, I go, what the hell are you guys? What world are we living in? What world are we living in? De-escalate, and I've said this publicly, my officers will de-escalate when the bad guys de-escalate. Racial bias crap. I don't know if any of you know about this racial bias test. You know, this crap, it's amazing what these people in these schools of psychology and these schools of social welfare, the social engineering that they come up with, these theories, this crackpot stuff is what this is. So somebody puts out this racial bias theory, and it basically says, in a nutshell, we're all racist. We just don't know it. But now this thing has been extended to police officers needed. Not the population as a whole, because it says we're all racist. Well, that means everybody needs it. Why police? Well, this same test is now under attack by psychology professors in these schools of social sciences. They're questioning the validity of the finding, the reliability of the test, and the credibility of it. The professor, their peers are, not the cops. So if they're challenging this as junk science, why would we want to undergo this stuff? This is political correctness. The New Jersey Attorney General orders statewide police training on racial bias. Why would they do it? Someone's got to push back, ladies and gentlemen. You know, your law enforcement fraternities, your FOPs, your unions, you got to help me push back this stuff. I sent an email, a couple of friends of mine in New Jersey, and I told them just that. I said, you guys got to push back on this. Tell these people to shove it up their rear end. We're not doing it. Pardon my language. I just got through reading about this cop in Palm Springs, and I'm supposed to be diplomatic. No, I'm not diplomatic. I'm mad as hell. So I see this stuff. And like I said, keep in mind, you know my backdrop is I'm sending men and women out in harm's way every day. I gotta protect them. They need to know. Because because they assume this risk. We volunteer for this. They need to know that if I go out here today and something goes horribly wrong, my sheriff has my back. If a mistake is made, you know, we'll correct the mistake. We make mistakes. The cop's perfect. Close. Our law enforcement agency's perfect. Not by any stretch of the imagination. We work in a world of uncertainty. We don't always get to predict the outcome. We don't always get to determine the outcome. You know who determined Mike Brown's outcome? Mike Brown. Trying to disarm a law enforcement officer. You know who determined Eric Garner's outcome? Eric Garner. He was told, turn around. You all heard it. The audio is there. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest. And he didn't do it. That's his fault. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, these are all tragic. They are. I'm not that insensitive. But if somebody else does something to impact on an outcome, I'm not going to feel bad about it. I'm not going to come down on the cop. I go, well, Eric Garner was given a choice. Turn around, put your hands behind your back. That's all he had to do. If he does that, there isn't a person in this room that would know who Eric Garner is or ever heard his name. Because you know what? He'd have bailed out later and gone on with life. If Mike Brown just got out of the street like Darren Wilson told him, get out of the roadway. He does that, we never hear the name Mike Brown. Think of this. Mike Brown made that choice by attacking the law enforcement officer. And the officers are pretty great in Baltimore 6 case. Miscarriage of justice that those officers were even dragged through that crap. I knew they were going to prevail, but think of the psychological toll on these 6 officers. 2 of those officers called me after the trial. Reached out to me and thanked me for supporting them and the law enforcement community. They were hearing it loud and clear. That's what my message is for. It's not for the cop haters. Screw them. Freddie Gray was a co-contributor in his own demise. He fled from police. Now, some people were saying erroneously, fleeing the police is not a violation of the law. Well, first of all, it is. And these were lawyers saying this on TV, including a friend of mine, Judge Napolitano on Fox, said fighting for the police is not. Yes, it is. Okay, so that doesn't mean a person needs to die. But do you know what the highest risk activity a law enforcement officer engages in? Foot pursuits and vehicle pursuits. We are put by them into this high-risk situation because we don't have a choice. We can't, well, we're not going to chase this to risk. We can't do that. I'll charge for cowardice. I will. I expect you to be smart, but I'm not, if I hear a cop saying, I ain't doing that because it's, get rid of it. We have to do this on behalf of the people who serve. We have to take these risks. So apparently, all these guys these lawyers have gone to these, prestigious law schools, they ought to go do some research. Because I'm not a legal scholar, but I know how to read. And I read these court cases, and I ask about them relative to the stuff that we're engaged in. And so I asked my adjutant, I said, see if there's any Supreme Court rulings on fleeing from the police. Well, there is. Illinois versus Wardlaw. And then the United States Supreme Court said you cannot flee from the police. And it also said that fleeing from the police is the height of suspiciousness. Who flees from the police? People who are up to no good. And they said because of that, that gives the police officer a right to pursue them, even if they don't know that they've done anything, but the mere flight from a police officer is the height of suspiciousness, and law enforcement officers have to investigate suspicious activity. So if you don't want to die in these interactions. When a cop tells you to put your hands behind your back, you're going to jail, do it. If a cop tells you to get out of the road, just do it. And if the cop wants to conduct a field interview or a traffic stop, you got to pull over, you got to stand there. And if you don't, you suffer the consequences. It's called the rule of law, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we defend. We're on the front lines of the rule of law in a democratic society. No rule of law, no democratic society, no order, chaos. This is about the rule of law. It's not about what cops get to do or not. It's about the rule of law. Then change the law, I say. If you want cops to stop pursuing people that run, have somebody go back to the United States Supreme Court and get them to review this case. That's how we do this in this country. The rule of law. The United States Supreme Court will re-review cases they decided before. They go back there and change it. But until they change that law, someone flees from us, we're chasing. We have to use due regard. I don't want innocent people, in these traffic, high-speed pursuits, you end up killing some unintended person. We have to follow due regard. That's training, that's a lot of other things. But I'm not going to tell my officers, you will not engage in vehicle pursuits just because some third party might kill. It's the risk I'm willing to assume. That could cost me politically. That's quite all right. I have to allow my officers use discretion. I trust my officers. Are mistakes made sometimes? The speeds get up a little too high? Yeah, those are called mistakes. Let's sort it out. Was this reckless, or was this just the adrenaline's flowing, the anxiety? If it's that, we'll deal with it that way. If it's reckless, well, it doesn't mean it's criminal, first of all. We pay tort damages for stuff like that. We don't charge cops criminally. We pay their families large sums of money to make them whole. It doesn't bring the dead person back, it's not supposed to, but that's what tort law is. We try to make people whole. How do we make them whole? We give them cash. I don't have a problem with that. Give the family $100 million. I don't care. Don't charge a cop, damn it. It wasn't criminal. What the Baltimore 6 did, and I heard this, well, they didn't belt him in, who cares? Let's say I give them the benefit of the doubt, they should have belted him in. Still not criminal. It's a rule violation. You want to hammer them for a rule violation, suspend them or whatever, fine. Don't charge them with a freaking felony, for heaven's sakes, and ruin their careers, ruin their lives, send them to prison. You gotta be kidding me. So, I gotta wrap this up here. I didn't get into some of the other stuff here, but that's all right. A lot of stuff that I was prepared for here is stuff you've heard me say, just reiterate, strengthen it. I just wanted to give you a little understanding of why I'm the way I am, why I say what I say. Because I know you hear a lot, it doesn't bother me. Well, he's this, he's bombastic. I don't care about any of that. Like I said, I can support what I say. And most people in this discourse that I'm about, they can't support, it's just an opinion. Well, I think cops are racist. I go, what are you based on? Show me the data, I tell them. Show me the research. There is none. Just so you know the next time, because I don't need you to go out and sell me. But just so you know, the next time I say something or hear me, just know this about it. You don't have to agree with it. Just know, you probably thought that one through. Because I've met the guy, and this kind of guy he is. He doesn't talk about the top of his head. So to the law enforcement officers in the room today, my message to you is keep your heads held high. I'm proud of you. The communities are proud of you. You don't hear it enough, but don't worry about that. The other thing I need you to do is stick together. It is circle the wagons time. Cover each other. Watch each other's back. You hear that call for help, and you know this, but drop what you're doing and get over it. All right, I know you guys are inundated calls for service coming in, under-resourced, to the politicians in the room today. I think there's a mayor here or something. Keep this in mind when you're making budgets out. I realize cop budgets drain the city budget. But it's the most important thing that city government does, damn it. You got a lot, but you know what? I'll say to you what I say to myself. You wanted the job. Figure it out. I realize you have competing interests. Figure it out. You wanted it. You campaigned for it. You raised money for it. Now you got it. All right? And then finally this, law enforcement officers in the room. Trust your instincts. You folks are well trained. You're well educated. You're professionals now. Trust your instincts. Things can and will go wrong in this world. Call it life. Sort it out. But I want you to go home at the end of the night. And like this now widow won't get to kiss her husband hello and goodbye anymore. To carry a Roswell daughter will never get to know her mom. I don't want any more of those. Even though it's a reality of this work, I don't want any more. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and attention. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Montgomery County Crimestoppers, we have a flag flown over the state capitol here in Texas for Sheriff Clarke. It's a fitting tribute for Sheriff Clarke here in Montgomery County, which is the birthplace of the Lone Star flag. So thank you for your time, thank you for your words.
Thank you. Somebody's going to wonder if what the hell's going on outside of my house. I fly over Glory every day. I start flying the flag of the state of Texas. You have been a winner's opening stuff, right? Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Wonderful speaker. We were lucky to have Sheriff Clarke. Our next speaker is at 2:50, so if you take a break, leave your books on your table if you will. Sanders will come around and scan your books. Make sure when you sit back under there, it's page 19.